Welcome to the Philantrepreneur Show, hosted by Dr. Victoria Boyd, designed to offer tips, strategies, and insights to empower nonprofits and entrepreneurs with sustainable win-win solutions. The Philantrepreneur Show is sponsored by the Philantrepreneur Foundation, building capacity through education and professional services.
Well, welcome. This is Dr. Victoria Boyd, President and founder of the Philantrepreneur Foundation and editor of the Philantrepreneur Journal. And as usual, I am thrilled to bring tips, strategies, and insight for the business and nonprofit sector. And in mentioning tips, I've come across quite a few great ones lately, not only about projects, but people too. Have you? So what we're asking you to do and help us with is that if you know of some valuable content for today's entrepreneurs and nonprofits, we'd like you to invite them to be on our show. It's a way that you can promote what you're doing, but also it's a way for our listeners, those budding entrepreneurs and nonprofits, to see strategies, to witness how they work, and to understand that it is possible for them to reach their dreams. So just visit our website. You can send us inquiry to be a guest on the show, because we'd love to hear from you and have you with us at some point. So yesterday, I always talk about little things that I've been doing. I went to the Philantrepreneur National Day with AFP Las Vegas chapter. Yesterday morning, really, my intent for today's show was going to be something totally different. And it was taking a different direction. But you go to these events, and it's synchronicity, and I've talked about how synchronicity works in my life a lot, where people just come into my path, and I have to listen. I have to pay attention. But at the event, the AFP Philanthropy Day, we had some great speakers and some strong messages. And I was really especially proud to watch as Linda Lizakowski received a Lifetime Achievement Award. It was a great opportunity. And she also introduced the Philantrepreneur Campus Center and how she will be honored in it with the Legacy Library. I was truly excited and ecstatic that she mentioned that from the stage. But in the past, I've said I've mentioned and pay attention to my synchronicity, but sitting at my table was a group of great people, and it's actually two of the people sitting at the table were from the Tortoise Group. Now, I had sort of heard of that group because I used to work at the Springs Preserve, and we had working with the scientists and with the zoo over there and things, we come across and we actually had to raise some different funds for the group. But I didn't know a lot about it. But sitting at the table was Kobbe Shaw and Sarah Mortimer of the Tortoise Group. And it's a nonprofit that focuses on the desert tortoise. Not only its well-being and protection, but arranging adoptions. I had no idea. And so I immediately, it was like, wow, that's so cool. And I knew we needed to learn more, and Kobbe was telling us about it. So, knowing me, and if you do know me, I just, off the top of my head, said, Kobbe, come on the show today. Just join us. So, here we are. With me today is Kobbe Shaw. He's Executive Director of the Tortoise Group. And before we get into some fascinating facts about these regal creatures, and I understand, and I actually found through some of my own research, that you have quite a diverse background, coming from aerospace engineer from West Point, and you started out in manufacturing, and now you're in the nonprofit sector. That's almost a 180-degree shift. But, Kobbe, welcome to the show, and please, tell us a little bit more about you and how you got on this path that led you to be in the nonprofit sector and with the Tortoise Group. Welcome to the show, Kobbe.
Well, thank you for having me, Victoria. I appreciate the generous offer, and it's wonderful to be here. As far as my own involvement in the nonprofit world, I have to say that it's all basically just good luck that led me to this point. I was in the military for 8 years. I did have the opportunity to go to West Point. I started as a soldier. I graduated, became a commissioned officer. Unfortunately, I tore my knee up. Otherwise, I'd probably still be jumping out of airplanes today. But I got out of the military on a medical discharge. When I got out, I started working in manufacturing as my degree, as you mentioned, was in aerospace engineering. Went to work as an engineer in a couple of different factories. And you know what? To be honest, when you work in a factory, it's not as exciting as jumping out of an airplane.
Go figure.
So I started looking for different opportunities, and I decided to go to graduate school, and that's what led me to Las Vegas. I applied to UNLV. I was accepted, and as soon as I got to UNLV, I ran across a company called IDC, which I'm sure you're familiar with. Wonderful
fundraising group. Yeah.
Yes, it's Diane Carlson's group, and at that time we had national clients, and we were consultants for nonprofits, and I got hired directly through the West Point connection because my clients were the Association of Graduates with West Point, Air Force Academy, etc. And that was really my first introduction into the nonprofit world. I came at it kind of obliquely from the fundraising side. And then through the years, I began working at Big Brothers Big Sisters here in town. And then it's funny you mentioned Springs Preserve. I volunteered at Springs Preserve. I started getting involved with the zoology department. I saw how these cool little desert animals live their lives. I had no introduction to that before. And I happened to see something online. You know, you get these little emails from AFP and from other sources, and it was about a position at Tortoise Group. So I said, this sounds pretty interesting. And at that time, Tortoise Group needed a specific skill set, and I needed to focus my passions on an awesome organization. So that's how I ended up where I'm at.
Wow. I mean, we actually, not knowing it, have a lot of commonalities and things that happen. I was a dance teacher for 28 years and ultimately tore up my knee. And, you know, certain things happen to the old body that you have to make shifts and readjust your path to accommodate some of these bodily things, as they say. But yeah, I mean, and even our paths crossing at the Springs Preserve, I mean, that's sort of crazy. Wow.
Oh, yeah. These wonderful organizations that Southern Nevada has that, you know, I'm a huge proponent of Springs Preserve. I talk to people and I say, have you been to Springs Preserve? And folks, you know, somebody's been living in Las Vegas for 10, 15 years. Oh, I remember when it opened, but haven't been there yet. My first response is, go. It's a great place. Support your community. Get out there.
Yeah, it's a very interesting, you know, I watched it go through the evolution of being really the sustainable capital, or, you know, being the hub of sustainability, to becoming more about environment and saving, you know, different things. So it really has a lot of different perspectives that it's able to present by being over on that 180-acre plot of land over there. I mean, it is a great place to tour, but that's how I learned about some of the tortoises, because they were talking about, I think at the time, they had to reposition some because they were in the way of some type of construction or something, but they were talking about rehoming it. But anyway, it was interesting. But, okay, so when you mentioned that yesterday, obviously it caught my attention, and so the whole table started, you know, drilling you with questions, and some of the, what I call it, quirky facts that came out about the desert tortoise are, I mean, I think they're really interesting. I think our listeners might want to hear. So give us some interesting tidbits or facts that most people might not know about these tortoises that live right around in our backyard.
Certainly, absolutely, Victoria. The desert tortoise is probably one of the most misunderstood species in Nevada. It's our state reptile. Yay! It's awesome.
Yay!
This little guy is he's the desert tortoise is on the threatened species list. And a lot of times people the only interaction that most people have, they can say, well, I saw something on television. There was some construction project that was stopped because we saw a desert tortoise or something like that. So people have this vague idea that it's this this species that causes some type of legal problem. And the reality is that nothing could be farther from the truth. There's and as a result of the law has put the desert tortoise really into two categories. And this is this is where you start getting into crazy detail. But in the wild, the desert tortoise is a threatened species, which means you can't touch it, you can't move them around, and you just look at them and you say, awesome, that's a cool animal. But prior to the law being passed in 1989, and then in Southern Nevada in 1991, everybody that had a desert tortoise as a pet was essentially grandfathered in and was allowed to keep their desert tortoise. So we've got this whole group of what we call captive tortoises, and it's anybody that's had a pet desert tortoise since 1989. So what leads to is two separate populations. You've got the tortoises out in the wild, and then you've got the tortoises that were raised in captivity as pets. The pets have the potential of having a disease called upper respiratory tract infection. I don't want to get into the biology of this, but the short answer to all of this is that you can't take one of the pets and put it back out into the desert. So
I'm sure that's what everybody will just put them back out in the desert. Yeah.
Exactly. So really the biggest misconception here is we say it's on the threatened species list. Okay, this is an animal that has the potential of becoming endangered and then becoming extinct. Well, gosh, why don't I just breed these little babies in my backyard, and then I'll throw them out into the desert and help the environment? And that is exactly what you don't want to do, because the tortoises that are raised in captivity, first of all, probably wouldn't survive in the wild. But secondly, you're looking at different genetic strains, and they have this potential to carry this disease, which would wipe out entire populations in the wild. Mm-hmm. So now we're left with quandary. What do we do with the tortoises that are raised in captivity and the people that have them don't want them anymore? And you can't put them back into the desert. You certainly can't kill these little guys. And according to the law, you can't take them across state lines. So
I didn't know that either.
Yeah, you can't take them across state. Exactly. There's so many crazy little laws about this. So the agency that was put to kind of manage this is Tortoise Group. We work with Fish and Wildlife and the Nevada Department of Wildlife. And Tortoise Group is a nonprofit organization that was founded here in Las Vegas in 1982. And our mission statement is pretty simple. We educate and advocate on behalf for the protection and well-being of the desert tortoise, right? So we exist to make sure these little guys are okay. In that mission statement, now we have been tasked by Fish and Wildlife to ensure that adoptions go smoothly. So we go in if we facilitate these adoptions. And because of all the legal jargon and nonsense, we're the only agency that's allowed to adopt out desert tortoises. And man, Victoria, it is such a need in our community. I mean, we're talking about hundreds and hundreds of desert tortoises. I dare say that there are probably people listening to this broadcast right now that have a desert tortoise or their next door neighbor does, and know that, they just had hatchlings, there was a clutch last year or this year, and there's a lady down the street that's got 30 tortoises. I mean, they're just all over the place, but it's something that we don't talk about. So we really want to let people know that people can adopt a tortoise. It's as simple as that. If you were thinking about having a dog, think about a tortoise. It's just that simple.
And most people don't think about the tortoise, and just all of these unique little caveats that you can't release them into wild, because you hear about releasing the horses in the wild, just putting things back into nature where they belong. But now with the tortoises that have, even when they're born, the possibility of having this disease that could, in fact, I'm surprised, I guess you don't know until they're born whether or not they have it. Or are they all born with that disease, or it's just something that's in their genetics now?
No, it's and forgive me because I'm not a biologist, but it's essentially a dormant disease. If a tortoise in captivity gets the upper respiratory tract disease, it can probably live its entire life without major repercussions. It might have kind of a runny nose. You look, and then the tortoise has like snot bubbles coming out. But
okay. Such a great vision here.
Yeah, no, it looks kind of weird, but you want to take care of your tortoise and you want to be humane, and you know that this little guy is suffering. He's not feeling well. You can tell by their movements. I mean, tortoises aren't known for their speed, but if you're taking the normal speed of the tortoise moving around, he's going to be moving a lot more sluggishly if he's got this infection. But if you take that same tortoise, put it out in the wild, the natural defenses in a wild tortoise's system are no match for this disease, and it'll kill the wild tortoises fairly quickly. So that's one of the main reasons. You've got this disease can be passed along to large groups, and that's why we advocate not to have more than one tortoise. I mean, aside from the fact that it's the law, but if you do have tortoises, we want to keep them separated. You don't want to spread the disease. You don't want mating. So it's so tricky because it's so weird, when you start getting into the details. I mean, it makes sense when you get through all the hoopla, but you want to keep them in captivity. That's basically it. And these guys live from 80 to 100 years old, so they're going to be around a while.
Not to scare everyone off from wanting to adopt, because that's sort of what we're trying to encourage people to think about. That whole, that there is the opportunity to adopt. I mean, literally, until I met you yesterday, no, I had not thought about, we can actually have a tortoise, because yes, you think about having a little turtle inside in a little bowl of, in the aquarium, but you don't see, and I guess maybe because I'm a Yankee and from the Midwest, you just don't think of having a tortoise as a pet. And I even read on your website that technically no one can ever be the owner. They can only adopt. And basically they're just like the foster parents forever. No one can really own them because they are wild creatures. And that's a law I didn't know anything about. I mean, I read a lot on your website, and it was really interesting.
Yeah, Victoria, you bring up an excellent point. I would recommend people go to our website. It's tortoisegroup.org. You can find out more information. But, when you consider yourself a pet owner, the law states that because these animals are on the threatened species list, if you have one in captivity, you're a custodian. And I would make the further argument that who are we as human beings to own another life form? I mean, really, if you have a dog, great. The dog stays with you. You guys have a good copacetic relationship. But do you really own a dog? Do you really own a cat? I mean, we are custodians for this other life form. And we're looking at a tortoise. It's just a different life form. You could be a custodian for a desert tortoise.
Right, yeah. Just because of the laws, it makes you really look at your whole perspective of wildlife, animals, pets, and things like that. It's areas I've never really thought about, but I'm glad I did. I'm so glad I met you. So what we're going to do right now, we're going to take a quick commercial break, and then we will be right back with Kobbe Shaw of the Tortoise Group, and we're going to learn a whole lot more information about being a foster mom. We'll be right back.
The Philantrepreneur Journal, a quarterly digital publication reaching over 600,000 entrepreneurs and nonprofits. Get targeted exposure to reach your ideal customer with our unique Ads for a Cause, where 50% of the fee goes to support our nonprofit training and services programs. Together, we can make a difference, create impact, and build capacity. Visit thephilantrepreneur.com, Marketing Ads tab for all the details. Mention this show and get a 10% discount.
Okay, we're going to go right into
today's Philantrepreneur Show tip.
There we go. Yes, we always bring a Philantrepreneur Show tip with each show, and it is fundraising time for most nonprofit organizations to get in their year-end push. It's the giving season, and that's how the sector refers to it. And that's great, but what are your plans after January 1st? Fundraising is multifaceted and an ongoing process, and not just for nonprofits. Do you have a project, a dream, or a need? Or do you have a strategy? Learn more about funding the future in a shared community of steady growth. Visit the Philantrepreneur Foundation website and hit the Get Funding tab.
The Philantrepreneur Foundation. Build your capacity with our educational programs and professional services. Learn how to be a philantrepreneur. Maximize your social impact and maximize your revenue. Visit thephilantrepreneur.com or philantrepreneurfoundation.org to find services, resources, and training to launch, enhance, or improve your business or nonprofit strategy. While there, sign up to receive the Philantrepreneur Journal digital publication.
Okay, welcome back as we continue our conversation with Kobbe Shaw. He's the executive director of the Tortoise Group.org, a nonprofit that is here to provide education and protection of the desert tortoise. I mean, I am really excited that I met he and Sarah yesterday at the luncheon that we attended. He already mentioned the mission, but we're going to ask him to repeat that and then tell us a little bit more about the Tortoise Group. So what is your mission again so that we can all remember it?
Victoria, the mission of Tortoise Group is we educate and advocate for the well-being of the desert tortoise. It's pretty simple. We're a nonprofit group that exists solely for the protection and the education of the desert tortoise. This animal is our state reptile. It has a long history. Obviously, it's a reptile. We're talking millions of years old.
Yes.
But it's very specific to this part of the world. There's the desert tortoise has a tiny little population in southern Utah, a very, very small population in northwestern Arizona, and then a little bit more showing in eastern California. But really, we're talking about southern Nevada is the home of this animal. So its home, and it's our home.
So, I mean, literally, these tortoises don't appear anyplace else in the world?
No, they don't. There are obviously other tortoises there's a very close species called the Sonoran tortoise that lives mostly in Arizona, and then you've got different types of turtles and tortoises throughout the world, but this species, the Latin name is Gopherus agassizi, which is kind of cool. This guy, he's only native to southern Nevada. Yeah, it's just right here.
I had no idea. You know, I'm thinking tortoise is a tortoise is a tortoise. Wow. So that's why, I mean, it makes total sense now why it's our state animal. You know, it's just coming full circle now for why the Tortoise Group is so important to this community and in the wildlife and environmental sectors of causes. But, okay, so as a nonprofit, you know, we all have some major challenges. But for you and your organization, what main obstacles are you facing? And maybe some of our listeners or the community can reach out and help you.
Certainly. You know, every nonprofit faces obstacles. It's just the nature of our business. But I think Tortoise Group's main obstacle is probably the ability to give a clean and concise message. In other words, there's all this. I mean, you heard me talk for a couple minutes earlier about what we're doing, and it's actually kind of confusing until you get your fingers into it. Our main obstacle right now, at this very second, is getting people to adopt captive desert tortoise. But in order for us to get people to adopt these tortoises, we have to let people know that they can do that. There's
right.
there's such a misunderstanding. As we were talking about at lunch, there's such a misunderstanding of what people are allowed to do and not do with the desert tortoise. So a lot of people feeling that they're helping will just actually take this an animal that they find on the street and then put it back out into the desert, and that's completely the wrong thing to do. It needs to be turned in, and then we take it, and then we find a home for it. But the need that we have tons of tortoises coming in, but we just don't have people raising their hands saying, hey, I would like to adopt a tortoise. But it's fairly simple. If you're thinking about a dog or a cat and you have a backyard, you're a candidate for a desert tortoise. So that's really our biggest need and obstacle is getting that message out, Victoria. It's just getting that message out and letting people know that this is a possibility here.
Yeah, well, three of the top challenges for nonprofits have been identified as funding, leadership adaptability, and marketing, which in my work, I was surprised at marketing, but then it all makes sense that you can't do the work you do and serve your mission and get people to follow you if you don't tell people, which is marketing. And you have a dual challenge or purpose in your marketing is to get the right educational information into the community. Like I said, I literally, even though working at the Springs Preserve, had no idea about the complexity of the tortoise population here in Nevada, nor that we could actually have one at home. It's just, I don't know, like that little tidbit sort of escaped the message that I even heard. It was, more the health factors that kept coming up, which in turn, if your marketing message, like you said, how do you clarify that marketing message? Most people, like you said, hear, oh, they're sick, we need to protect them. And it's not about putting them back, but it's about the bigger, I guess, issue, protection. And that's why in your mission statement it does say, protection of the desert tortoise. So, I'm excited to know that people can adopt them. So if someone, you have a backyard, what is it that you really need to do in your backyard? Do you need to have a special structure, dig a hole? I don't know. What would that landscape or what would that habitat look like for tortoise?
Excellent question, and that is the tortoise needs a burrow. This guy sleeps 6 months out of the year. So I don't know if you've ever been walking around out near Red Rock or out near Lake Mead, but you'll see these things in the wild. They just look like little holes in the ground. So what a tortoise would need in your backyard is essentially we call them burrows because that's what they are, and the cost for that is typically between about maybe $300 to $400. You have a burrow built, and that cost really is the landscaping cost of making it look pretty, so that you don't have just a giant mound of dirt in your backyard. So,
that sounds like my backyard. I don't know what you're talking about.
Exactly.
Wouldn't be anything different here.
It really the most of the cost is going to be dependent on the aesthetics, on how you like your backyard to look. I have a friend who has a backyard barbecue every 4th of July. In his backyard, it looks like an empty desert lot. And we come over, and every year we say, you really got to do something with this backyard. And he flips a steak and says, I really need to. And every year he doesn't do it. So, yeah, there's plenty of folks that have nothing in their backyard already. But, there's a lot of people that have nice-looking backyards, and the cost is associated with putting a little love and care into the aesthetics of it. We also would recommend certain plants that the tortoise can eat, just year-round to have it there. And that's an upfront cost. But I tell you, Victoria, as soon as you put that burrow in, and let's say we spend $400 max on this, you're looking at a cost of maybe $50 or $60 a year on food, and that's it. Yeah, the tortoise. This guy takes care of himself. He's going to wander around and do tortoise things in your backyard. They're just awesome little animals. I can't. It's so easy. It's so easy and it's so cheap compared to and I'm not going to denigrate a dog and I'm not going to put down a cat. These are awesome animals too, and they need homes as well. But if we're looking at the cost, it's much cheaper. And it's really simple to have a tortoise. So the short answer to your question is, besides the backyard, not much. That's what you need. You just need to have a backyard.
Okay. Well, and you mentioned, other pets. Is it okay to have a dog and a tortoise?
Absolutely. Now, this is perfectly valid question. I had a gentleman ask me just last week. He said, "Well, I thought dogs were allergic to tortoises." Again, this is the misunderstanding of the desert tortoise. So the reality is that tortoises are just like dogs, just like people. They have temperaments and they are individual animals. So you'll come across some tortoises that do not like dogs. You'll come across some tortoises that love dogs. So there's nothing genetically that stops them from being together. And you'll come across some dogs that don't like tortoises. So really that's part of the adoption process. And that's kind of the bread and butter of what we do on the adoption side is that Victoria, if you raised your hand and said, "Hey, Tortoise Group, I want to adopt a tortoise," what we would do is we would send a volunteer or a staff member to your house. We would do a yard consultation, and then spend about an hour or two with you, or sometimes less. It just depends on the size of your yard. And after that meeting, you would know how much it would cost to have the burrow built, what vegetation you need to plant, and then whether or not there are certain parts of your backyard that might not be suitable. You might have a hole in the fence or something like that. And then in that, we're also looking at the other animals that you have. Is this animal friendly to smaller animals? Do you have a Rottweiler? Do you have a Pit Bull? Do you have a Chihuahua? That's all part of the conversation. But that's what the yard consultation is designed for, and that's what we do. It's a service that we offer.
Wow. Because I'm glad because Sarah yesterday mentioned that they like to escape, and most of the yards here in what I'll call the houses that have been built in the last 15 to 20 years have those big cement walls, so it's almost perfect for them. They can't get out readily, which makes it safer for them. But just knowing that, you can have other pets. Not that I have any. But also, you mentioned vegetation and plants, and once again, on your website, I had no idea what, just watching what you see on TV, or which now I know is fictitious, that, they shouldn't be eating lettuce and cabbage and things like that because it doesn't have the nutrition and vitamins they need, and in some cases, stop some of their systems from working. So could you go through because I know someone's out there thinking about really doing this. So you said there's a special food, but what would be some of the plants you could put out in your yard? Some people might already have them out there.
Certainly. We get that question all the time. And my response is just go out to Red Rock, go out to out by Lake Mead, and take a look around. All the stuff that's out there is what a desert tortoise would normally eat. So you don't see cabbage or lettuce growing out there. So what a tortoise eats is fairly simple. Tortoises love like rose petals and certain type of flower buds. They look for really, really bright flowers. To them that's what's drawing it to their. That's what they're looking at in terms of appealing food. If you have a pet tortoise, let's say you don't have grass in your backyard. Tortoises like grass too, but if for whatever reason you've got desert landscaping, there's a product, and there are several different manufacturers of this, but it's tortoise food. ZooMed makes a brand of it. Mega Diet sells another brand, but we sell through our product sales the ZooMed product, which is called Grassland, and it's kind of freeze-dried grass. That's basically what it is. And they're just little pellets, and you throw some water on it, and then it expands, and it's just kind of this mushy little grassy substance. And it's just stuff that a desert tortoise would normally eat out in the wild. That's really the healthiest thing for the tortoise. if your backyard isn't big enough, then the canned tortoise food offers a supplement that from a dietary standpoint that the tortoise needs. So we hear stories all the time of tortoises being fed pizzas and marshmallows and things like that, and tortoise and people will say, well, my tortoise likes it, he eats it. You know what?
Not really.
Yeah. So does the 10-year-old boy who's 400 pounds. It's not. You kind of have to be careful, and you have a certain responsibility as a custodian. But you were mentioning fundraising strategies, and that is one of our sources of income is actually working with our paid member. We have a membership base, but we also offer these sales of grass of product online, and that helps us. It's not a huge amount, and obviously we're not a retail outlet, so it's not like we can just start selling a whole bunch of different products, but we have a very specific niche here, and that helps. So I think a lot of people support the Tortoise Group through the purchase of these of this product, and it's good for the animal. So that's why we advocate on behalf of this particular product, which is grassland tortoise food, because the biologists that we work with the USGS, Department of Wildlife, the Fish and Wildlife Service, these are industry experts that have knowledge in the field. Not to mention the volunteers and the workers within Tortoise Group have collectively hundreds of years of experience with pet tortoises. So there's a wide knowledge base, and this type of food is what that's the recommendation. So that's what we say is the best thing for a tortoise.
Absolutely, and I'm glad you brought up that you are selling things online, because as our organization, the Philantrepreneur, we promote that nonprofits look at what are some items and things that you can use as revenue streams to sell. The conference we just had 3 weeks ago was called Road Trip, but it was about social enterprise for nonprofits, and they went through 2 days of building out a business plan of how to look at their assets. And basically, that tortoise food is, and the knowledge that you have is an asset of what you do. It is directly aligned with your mission. And so, you could technically buy into that company and have that as a major component of what you're doing. But what it shows is that you, as an organization, you are a philantrepreneur. See, I always get to bring it back to what you're doing. Another thing that I read on your site, and believe me, I went through your site now. You're going to see this. And I hadn't thought about it, but then when it's mentioned, you say, oh yeah, that you should not paint or put decorations on it or do anything to a tortoise shell. We're talking about protecting it now. I hadn't thought about it, but then in looking, online, you see crazy things. So tell us how that really harms the tortoise.
Well, the tortoise shell, obviously through millions of years of evolution, has become its protection. And there's all the. A tortoise is not an aggressive animal, and if it's threatened, it just sucks its arms and legs and head back into its shell. But having said that, the shell is a living thing. If you, God forbid, were to drill into a shell, there's actually a layer of, the biologist can kill me if I say this, I don't know if it's capillaries or veins or arteries, but you can make it, there's blood that flows on the lower level of the shell. And it's a lot like your fingernail, I think is probably the best way to describe it. It's if you take the cuticle part of your fingernail, towards the end, you cut it off, and that's how you cut your fingernails. But if you look closer towards the inside of your finger, the cuticle, and you press down, you're getting the more that I think it's keratin. I'm not sure exactly what whatever molecule setup is, but it's a living thing. So you don't want to put stuff on it. You don't want to drill it. You don't want to hurt, because it's going to hurt the tortoise. I mean, really as simple as that.
Absolutely. And and I think many people might equate it by just looking at it as like shell on a oyster, or a where they can actually shed their shell. It's not a part of their body. But in the case of a tortoise, it is a connective tissue. It is a part of what they of their physical and their structure, which I don't think people think about that. It's they can't shed their shell per se.
No, you took the words out of my mouth. They can't shed their shells. You're absolutely right. Yep, it's part of them.
Wow. Okay. I mean, this has been like really fascinating to me. I guess that's why I almost jumped on you yesterday and said, you got to be on my show. But it's just awareness of things that are right in your own backyard that you can actually have an impact. And, with the Philantrepreneur, we're always talking about how can you have impact in the community. So here's an organization called the Tortoise Group. They are out there protecting the tortoise, which is our state symbol, which is unique to this Southwest area. You won't find it any place else in the world, but yet there's an opportunity for you to actually adopt turtles because, no, you can't put them back out into the wild, but there is a high need for people that will take them in. The $400 or $500 is actually, putting that whole, go out there and dig that, especially if your yard looks like mine. One last question that popped in my head as I was saying this: is it okay to have a pool in your yard?
There's conflicting opinions on that, Victoria. We recommend that you don't have a pool. However, that's not a barrier. That's not something that would stop us from having that conversation. We could put up like kind of almost a child safety fence. There's a smaller area that the tortoise could be in. There's ways to talk about it. I'll say that, but it's not a showstopper.
Okay, yeah. I'm just going through in my brain my checklist of what people have in their yards and what would be a good situation, because I mean, like you said, you have a lot of tortoises that need homes because the gestation rate and how fast they're multiplying, we just can't keep up with. So I'm putting out all the little things that will support or be maybe a challenge to adopting. But I'm just glad to get it out there that here's another way to give back, but it's something that's really needed that not a lot of us think about. I hope people will contact you. So with me saying that, do you have any events coming up? Let's give our listeners some takeaways or maybe things that they should consider or how they can support you.
Certainly. We have a charity 5K coming up, but that's not until February. But in the meantime, the biggest thing, and I'm sure you're aware of this, is Giving Tuesday is happening on Tuesday after Thanksgiving, and
December 1st.
December 1st. You got Black Friday, you got Cyber Monday, and then once you've done all the consumer stuff, now you can take a look and do something philanthropic and pick your favorite charity. We would like to be your favorite charity. But
and so would we. So why don't we give a double plug? You need to support both of us because we do different things. But also, I've been putting out there, I don't know if you're a member of iGive, which is the online shopping portal for charities, that all of this shopping coming up with Black Friday and Cyber Monday, that if they are online doing it, that you as organizations, Tortoise Group, can go and become the organization of choice. And every purchase, no matter where they're making it, because iGive is connected to about 1,800 stores online, and it automatically shows up, that you'll get a percentage of that money. So you might want to investigate that, seeing that all this shopping is coming up. Absolutely. I mean, support us. We're both nonprofits. we're hopefully both doing good work. But look for your run that's in February. So give us the location, not the location, but the website, that's what I meant, and how to contact you if someone has immediate questions.
Certainly. Our website is tortoisegroup.org, and really, if you just Google Desert Tortoise or Las Vegas Tortoise, you'll be directed to our site. We're up there in the search engine optimization world. If you're thinking about adopting, please, you can give us a call. The easiest thing is just to get online, and we can address all of the questions and all of the issues, like you were talking about with a pool, with other pets. That's part of the yard consultation. We can have a conversation with you, and would really love for people just to consider a desert tortoise as an option for adoption. tortoisegroup.org. tortoisegroup.org. Also, if you want to find that website, you can go to the archives of our show. It's been great, and I want to thank Kobbe Shaw for, at the last moment, me and my sporadic just be on my show, for actually accepting and coming on the show today. I know there's a lot of people out there that were really interested and just learned some basic facts today that I'm sure they had either some myths or misguided information, and I'm sure we cleared up that. So thank you for coming on the show, everybody. If you want to visit and learn more about it, go to tortoisegroup.org. Thank you, Kobbe, for being on the show today. Thank you, Victoria.
All right. Talk to you soon. Okay, that was great, and I must be on a theme because this is now 2 shows in a row that dealt with animals. Did you know that you could hear all of our shows on YouTube? Yes, visit the Philantrepreneur channel to access our full archives of past shows. It's good for getting tips and insights on anything entrepreneur, nonprofit, or being a philantrepreneur. Do you want to have impact? Help us continue to provide quality education programs to build capacity and have impact in our community. Your support is needed. Please support one of our campaigns. Visit the Philantrepreneur.org or find us on Generosity, or join our sharing community in collective economics as we work together. Don't forget, join us for our next show where we will greet another great guest with tips and insights for your success. And in the meantime, we ask, are you a philantrepreneur?
Thank you for tuning in to the Philantrepreneur Radio Show, hosted by Dr. Victoria Boyd. Get involved. Follow us on Facebook and other social media outlets. If you wish to share comments or suggestions or appear as a guest on our show, visit www.thephilantrepreneur.com. Contact Victoria Boyd. Email her at theboyd@thephilantrepreneur.com. The Philantrepreneur Radio Show is a production of and sponsored by the Philantrepreneur Foundation, a 501c3 tax-deductible organization.